Now we are going to create a valid pipe. I mean a pipe that will extend to percent pipe, and that will verify this user ID or any ID which we are passing from request, that is valid or not, means that should be a number actually. So we will be creating one pipe, so I'm gonna keep it in common module since we'll be using it in other modules as well. So let's keep it in common folder, and I'm gonna create one folder for pipe. And if I go back in Nest documentation, let's see how we create pipe. So in order to create a pipe, what we do is we create a class, then we annotate it with injectable, means the pipe should be a provider, and then it should implement from pipe transform interface. Although there are some by default pipes available, so it's doesn't it is not mandatory to create a pipe from scratch. You can inherit the features that is already there in this pipe, and then you can modify it. You can override, you can do few more thing and modify the text. So instead of inheriting it from the pipe transform, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep parseInt pipe as base, and I will let the let parseInt pipe to do its work to, of parsing some string to number, and I'm just gonna verify things, and I'm just gonna override the misses. Okay, so the first thing what I need to do here is I need to create a file, and I will name it as validid.pipe.ts, and then I need to write a class, and this will be a valid ID pipe, and this should extends from parseInt. As I said, I will extend it from parseInt, so I'm inheriting it from the parseInt. So for this, like what I'm gonna do, if I am inheriting from some other base class, then I need to define a constructor, right? And in the constructor to I mean to execute the features in the parseInt, we need to also call super. Otherwise this constructor of this parseInt function will not be called, and so it might be having some default settings, so that needs to be executed. All right, so we can override it. So let's see, in parseInt, if I go in constructor, you will see there's a parseInt options, right? In parseInt options, you can see there's a exception factory. So in exception factory, it's a method, and it's a method, it accepts one error as a string. So if we modify this exception factory and pass our custom message, then it will show our custom message instead of showing its default message. Although we will not be changing anything else, like whatever functionality is doing internally to parse any string value to number. Okay, so we are just going to use this one, exception factory. So I'm going to copy it, and I'll go back in here, put it here. As we saw, this is method, since it is a factory as well. So I'm gonna write I'm gonna throw a bad request exception. So these are kind of filters already available in NestJS. If we use it, it will you can say it's a kind of middleware as well, where if we use it, we can provide user for any request, we can respond to it and with some error response. So what I mean is, like, it will automatically return some response whatever we are trying to put it here. And if we don't do it, then this parseInt pipe will actually return some default response. So what I can type here, the ID parameter must be a valid integer. Okay, I think that's it. And as we read, we also, as we read it here, like we need to make a pipe as provider. So to make a pipe provider, we need to create it, annotate it with injectable. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna mark it as injectable, and then if I'm converting a class to injectable, then I'll have to put it in, I mean, providers. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add it in providers, ValidPipe. Okay, so there's one thing, like this common.module file will be using in almost everywhere in all the modules. So what I just want to make it global. Instead of importing everywhere in every module, what I can do, I can mark it global, and then that way I will not have to import it in every module. All right. Okay, fine. And if we want this valid ID pipe should instance should be available in other modules, then we'll have to put it in export as well. Okay, so in NestJS, like each module has its own dependency container, and assume it like a box with some balls, where balls are all instances of services or whatever injectable there. But if we export it from here, then whichever module importing this common module will have access to this as well. Consider it like it will be a public instance for that module which is actually trying to import this one. Since we marked it as global, there's a global module, you can say container, where all the instance will be maintained. So this will be available in the global module as well, but it needs to be exported from here. Otherwise this will be a private, it won't work, it won't go in that module, even in the global module. Okay, global is actually not for module, it's just understand like global scope. For global scope, it manages one container. For injection, dependency injection, it manages a container. Hopefully I was able to explain this properly. Let's move further. So what we are going to do in user controller, what I want here is I want to add pipe. So we add pipe like this, valid pipe. Similarly, if I want to verify this pipe is valid, then I will do this, and I'll go in find all. I'll return something, return find all users. Similarly, I'll return something from here, find one user, and then I'm gonna return something from update user. Okay. Sorry. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run this application and we'll try to execute this, and we'll see whether this I mean this validation and all these things are working as expected, or we need to do something else. So what is going to happen is it may not work. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna close this. I will create a new collection, so that I can show you from scratch like how we'll be creating everything. So I'm going to create my existing one, and I'm going to add one collection here, blank collection, and I will name it. So let's do one thing, I'm just going to rename my existing one with something else so that I'm going to keep my new one as InstallPlan, the one which we are working on. Okay, we'll configure everything as we proceed in this series. Okay, we have the collection. What we want is we want to have one folder, and this folder will be named as user. Okay, and inside this user I'm gonna add one request for, let's say, get users. Let's add get users, and I'm gonna put localhost 3000, probably show what was it, users. And so we had users here, so it will find this here like with the slash users. And if I try to execute it, now, what is going to happen, it's returning find all users. Let's say I will copy paste, I will save it for a while, and then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate it. Is it possible to duplicate? Yes. And I'm gonna rename it get user, and here I'm going to pass some ID, let's say 1. Then we should trigger find one user, and let's say if I am passing ABCD, is it throwing some error? Yes, so it is throwing error from the pipe, like the ID parameter must be a valid integer. So our pipe is working as expected. Next, in next video, what we are going to do, we are going to work on the services. Means we are going to define these methods. Okay, and then we'll create user in database.